This is about defending democracy. This is no longer Democrats versus Republicans. What do you want your kids to believe in? There must be give and take.
This is White Flag with Joe Walsh.
There's good and evil in the world. Period. And I think so many people have such a hard time acknowledging that truth. I know there are gradations to good and evil, but there's basic good and evil. I've never been a proponent of an international organization like the United Nations that allows every country to be a part of it. From free countries to oppressive countries, from democracies to dictatorships, the United Nations welcomes all, good and bad, good and evil. I don't think that's tenable. I don't want, and I've never wanted the United States to be a part of that. The United Nations yesterday held a moment of silence for the death of Iran's president Ibrahim Raisi and his foreign minister. He died in that helicopter crash. Good riddance. Rejoice, Iran, people of Iran. And by the way, if you find that offensive, I pray every day for the people of Iran. I pray every day that the people of Iran can be free. I pray every day that the people of Iran can wear what they want to wear and say what they want to say. The president of Iran is killed in a helicopter crash. The United Nations yesterday holds a moment of silence for him. They lowered their flag outside the United Nations in New York City, in headquarters, in tribute to Raisi, the president of Iran, who lost his life in that helicopter crash. The Butcher of Tehran, he was called. He was a mass murderer. Over the course of his lifetime, he killed tens of thousands of Iranians and is responsible for the deaths of tens and tens and tens of thousands of innocent people outside of Iran. He was evil. He was a mass murderer. He was a terrorist. He personally publicly executed any Iranian who dared speak up, who dared speak out against the Iranian regime. He personally killed hundreds. He personally executed thousands. He's a horrible, bad, evil person. Why would the United Nations honor him with a moment of silence? Why would the United Nations lower their flag? Would the United Nations have done that with bin Laden? Would the United Nations have held a moment of silence for bin Laden? Would the United Nations have held a moment of silence for Hitler? I know there are gradations here, and I know that plenty of people shy away from using the terms good and evil. I get that. I know plenty of you think Netanyahu's evil because of what Israel is doing right now. I acknowledge that. I disagree with that. I acknowledge that in war and in disputes between nations and regimes, these conversations can be nuanced and complicated. But much of it isn't. And if you personally executed thousands of your own people for speaking up, you're evil. If you're responsible for the deaths, the killings of tens of thousands of innocent people around the world in the last 10 to 20 years, you're evil. Osama bin Laden was evil. Hitler was evil. And I just think that an organization like the United Nations is just fatally flawed if there's not a basic standard that, okay, resistance, and okay, you're defending your homeland, and okay, there are wars and disputes and disagreements, and so we welcome everybody in, but we've got a basic line. You can't be a mass murderer. You can't be a butcherer. You cannot be responsible for killing thousands and thousands of people. We can't let that into our organization. The United Nations doesn't have that standard. So they let everyone in, which is why I think the United Nations is utterly useless. Putin is evil. Vladimir Putin is personally responsible for the deaths of tens and tens of thousands of Ukrainians. He has destroyed much of Ukraine. He is evil. If he died tomorrow, would the United Nations have a moment of silence, hold a moment of silence for him? They would. They would. Which is why the United Nations is fatally flawed. And it's problematic for all of us if this idiotic thing, the International Criminal Court, coming down yesterday, holding applications for, declaring applications for crimes against humanity on the part of both Hamas and the Netanyahu administration. Screw that. Again, you may have problems with Netanyahu and with how Israel is handling themselves in this war. But if you cannot see the difference between Hamas, a terrorist organization, between Hamas, people who purposely kill civilians, and Israel, which inadvertently kills civilians, if you cannot see that difference, I don't want you and I in the same international organization. Have your own thing. Do your own thing. But this notion that we can have these big international organizations like the United Nations and some outfit called the International Criminal Court, screw that. There needs to be a basic understanding that if you're an Osama bin Laden or a Vladimir Putin or an Ibrahim Raisi, the now dead ex-president of Iran, you've killed too many people to be a part of this organization. It's why the United Nations will always be utterly useless and dangerous. I'm Joe Walsh. Thanks for listening. This is White Flag with Joe Walsh. Joe Walsh, whiteflag@gmail.com. All one word, Joe Walsh, whiteflag@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Be brave.
Thank you for listening. Remember to listen, share, and follow White Flag with Joe Walsh on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere great podcasts are found. And be sure to leave a 5-star review. This has been White Flag with Joe Walsh.